Good afternoon, children of Kerala Public School. Welcome to the online classes of English, Class 10 textbook, Chapter 3, Part 2, The Black Aeroplane. It is written by Frederick Forsyth, an English author and journalist. The Black Aeroplane is the second part of the story about flying, and it describes the story of a human being in a plane. It's an interesting account of the narrator's encounter with a pilot of a black airplane and its mysterious disappearance. Let us look into the lesson. Okay, I'm going to read it for you, and if possible, we can finish the first page number 37. Okay, look into the text. I'm going to read it for you. The Black Airplane. The moon was coming up in the east behind me, and stars were shining in the clear sky above me. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I was happy to be alone, high up above the sleeping countryside. I was flying my old Dakota aeroplane over France back to England. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. I should call Paris Control soon, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the airplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. I switched on to the radio and said, Paris Control, Dakota DS 088 here. Can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. Over. The voice from the radio answered me immediately. DS 088, I can hear you. You ought to turn 12 degrees west now. DS 088, over. I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and last fuel tank, and turned the Dakota 12 degrees west towards England. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good big English breakfast. Everything was going well. It was an easy flight. Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds, storm clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. I ought to go back to Paris, I thought, but I wanted to get home. I wanted that breakfast. I'll take the risk, I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. It was impossible to see anything outside the airplane. The old airplane jumped and twisted in the air. I looked at the compass. I couldn't believe my eyes. The compass was turning round and round and round. It was dead. It would not work. The other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio. Paris Control, can you hear me? There was no answer. The radio was dead too. I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. I was lost in the storm. Then, in the black clouds quite near me, I saw another airplane. It had no lights on its wings, but I could see it flying next to me through the storm. I could see the pilot's face turned towards me. I was very glad to see another person. He lifted one hand and waved. Follow me, he was saying. Follow me. He knows that I am lost, I thought. He's trying to help me. He turned his airplane slowly to the north. In front of my Dakota so that it would be easier for me to follow him. I was very happy to go behind the strange airplane like an obedient child. After half an hour, the strange black airplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. Now there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly over 5 or 10 minutes more. I was starting to feel frightened again. But then he started to go down and I followed through the storm. Suddenly I came out of the clouds and saw 2 long straight lines of lights in front of me. It was a runway, an airport. I was safe. I turned to look for my friend in the black airplane, but the sky was empty. There was nothing there. The black airplane was gone. I could not see it anywhere. I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control tower. I went and asked the woman in the control center where I was and who the other pilot was. I wanted to say thank you. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed. Another aeroplane? Up there in the storm? No other aeroplanes were flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. So, who helped me to arrive there safely without a compass or a radio? And without any more fuel in my tanks? Who was the pilot on the strange black airplane, flying in the storm without lights? So, this is a lesson. Now let us complete at least first page today if it is possible. It's a very simple lesson and I don't think you need any explanation. Here the pilot of DS-088 Dakota airplane is on his way to his home in England. Yes, when the story begins, we find him flying his plane over France at midnight. Come back to the lesson. The moon was coming up in the east behind me and stars were shining in the clear sky above me. That means the pilot was up in the sky. He could see the moon coming up from the east. The moon was coming up in the sky. It was behind him. And the moon was coming up from the east. It was behind him. That means the moon was seen in the east and it was behind him. That means he was flying to the west direction. Yes, you guessed correctly. The pilot was flying to the west direction. Let us see how was the weather. The stars were shining in the clear sky above me. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. That means the weather was very clear. How was the weather? The stars were shining and there wasn't a cloud. The weather was clear and it was fine. It was a fine weather. I was happy to be alone high up above the sleeping countryside. The pilot was feeling happy to be alone. He was enjoying the flight. He was going to the hometown. He was going to his hometown in a clear sky. The sky was very clear and the flight was moving very smoothly. He was flying over the sleeping village. You just see. I was flying my old Dakota airplane over France back to England. So he was going to England and now he was flying over France. If you go above that line, you can see the sleeping countryside. He was going above a rural area of France, and the rural area, the countryside people were all sleeping because it was early morning. It was 1:30, almost 1:30 at night. That means morning. He was feeling happy to be alone, enjoying the flight towards his hometown in a clear sky. Yes, he was flying over the sleeping village. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. He was dreaming. He was dreaming of his holiday, even very excited. He was dreaming of his holiday and was eagerly expecting to meet his members of his family. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. It was 1:30 in the morning. I should call Paris control soon, he thought. He called Paris control to inquire about the route and the location. So he wanted to know the route and the location. He had to be in touch with the ATC, air traffic control. So I should call Paris control soon, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the airplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. That means he made it sure that he was flying over Paris. So he switched on the radio and he said, Paris control, Dakota DS088 here, can you hear me? I am on my way to England, over. So he gave the message that he was going to England, and if there is any direction, they can give him. So he got the direction. The voice from the radio answered me immediately. DS088, I can hear you. You are to turn 12 degrees west now. DS088, over. That means he got the instruction. The control room instructed him to turn 12 degrees west to reach his destination. I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and last fuel tank. That means the old Dakota, the small airplane, had 2 fuel tanks. One was already over, so he switched on to the last and the second and the last one, and he turned his plane 12 degrees as instructed by the control room. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good big English breakfast. As the man was expecting, the man was very much excited to reach his home. He expected that he would reach his home by the time of the breakfast. A homely breakfast, tasty breakfast, a big breakfast. He wanted to have the breakfast with his family members, so he was sure he would reach home in time. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good big English breakfast. Everything was going well. It was an easy flight because the weather was fine and it was all smoothly going on. So he was sure that he would reach in time. Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds. But the things changed. When he flew 150 kilometers from Paris, what did he see? He found storm clouds. I saw the clouds, storm clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. Yes, they were storm clouds. It looked like huge mountains. It blocked the sky. It was blocking the sky. So he knew very well that it is very risky. A small plane cannot move through stormy clouds. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. See, there are only 2 ways. He should either fly up the clouds. He must go up the clouds. He must go over the clouds. Otherwise, he should go around them. He should either fly up the clouds or he should go around them to the north or the south to avoid it. But for that, he did not have enough fuel. You have seen, he had already switched on to the second and the last fuel tank. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. He cannot travel more than what he had already been. directed to you feel lost enough. So the only thing he could do, what is that? I ought to go back to Paris. So it is a common sense. It is something very good sense that told him, I ought to go back to Paris. His good sense told him to go back to Paris, I thought. But I wanted to get home. But he was not ready to go back to Paris. He was not ready to get down from the airplane. He felt sorry to get down from the plane because that would delay his meeting with his family members and the big breakfast. So I wanted that breakfast. I'll take the risk. So he became ready to take the risk. What was the risk? I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. He took the risk. Just for the breakfast, he took the risk. And he flew the airplane straight into the storm clouds. Okay, you got it? Tomorrow let us continue. Tomorrow we will finish the text. Okay.